All right, so in chapter 6, we are continuing that purchasing cycle. What's the first stage of purchasing cycle? Not a trick question. What's the first stage of the purchasing cycle?
Is that when you're checking inventory?
No.
Purchasing is the first stage, no?
Purchasing. Purchasing is the first stage of our purchasing cycle. We have to get our product first, okay? The second stage is
Receiving.
receiving. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today in chapter 6 of how we can control our costs during the receiving process. Okay. So I want you to think about some tools or some things that you need in order to receive your product effectively and efficiently. Okay. So think about this. The truck is backed up to your loading dock. They're about ready to bring all the ingredients that you ordered. Okay. What do you need in order to effectively receive that order? So on your paper, go ahead and write a couple of things that you think you might need, and then compare your list to your neighbor. Those of you who are online, you can type your answer in the chat, and then we can all take a look at what your chat answers are. What are some required tools for you to receive your product effectively and efficiently? All right, take a look at your neighbors, look at your answers, see if you have any in common or any differences.
Hey Siri,
I see purchase order, that's awesome.
list required tools for receiving food and beverage orders.
So I got
Okay, I found this on the web for list required tools for receiving food and beverage orders. Check it out.
All right. So purchase order, we do need to have our purchase order. That's our list of things that we purchased. So we can compare that to the things that are actually physically being brought in, okay? Thermometer, why do we need to have a thermometer?
measure any time and temperature.
We want to make sure that our items are not outside of that time and temperature danger zone. Okay, if we receive product and it's over 40 degrees, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to send it back. Because remember, as we sign for this, that means we pay for it. So if I send it back, we're going to talk about what we do with that in just a moment. Okay, so thermometers, good. A speed rack to unload the product, excellent. We might need a knife to open our boxes. Why would we need to open up the boxes?
You can see
To see how the condition there.
Yeah, well, it can check the condition of everything. When I was working in Maine, one thing I want to put up real quick here is our employee training. Employee training is so important. I can't just say, "Hey, Soraya, go ahead and go receive this order. The truck's just drop it off. Go ahead and receive the order." If I say, "Just go receive the order," that's it, and you've had no training on where this stuff goes, chances are something's going to get messed up. Okay, so there was one time in Maine when I was ordering, I ordered fresh green beans. Okay. And when I ordered these fresh green beans, they were on special because the warehouse needed to move all these products. They put it like it's a discounted price. And so I ordered the fresh green beans. I never received them before. So it came in this cute little like wooden box and it was like so awesome. It was like bound with like wire. And I was like, this is super cute. I love all these green beans. I'm gonna order fresh green beans from now on forever. Okay. Well, I looked at them, they looked great. So I put them into the refrigerator. Well, then the next day I go to use them. What happens to green beans when there's a lot of moisture on the inside?
They start to mold.
Start to mold. So then I open up this cute little box and I see these green beans and I dump them out in the sink and there's 4 giant balls of mold.
Oh,
And almost half of the green beans I had to throw away. But had I received those before, the next time I ordered fresh green beans, I knew while they were there, I went ahead and opened the box and kind of dug through them to make sure there wasn't a lot of mold. There's chances are there's going to be some mold, right? Because that's just the way it is. I'm not going to get a bushel that has absolutely 0 mold, especially when it's on special because they're trying to move it. It's been in their warehouse for a while. Okay. The other thing too, this is kind of goes a little bit into the next couple of chapters, but we talk about the preparation and employee training. I used to get my lettuces from a farmer up in Maine. It's 30 miles from my camp. So I literally would get in the car, I'd call the farmer, hey, I'm coming, I need 12 heads of lettuce. So 30 minutes later, I show up at the farm and he's got 12 heads of lettuce boxed up for me. These were like gorgeous, beautiful, like giant heads of romaine, green leaf, and red leaf lettuce. Like red leaf lettuce, like this big. Like, I mean, it's amazing, right? I had to teach somebody how to clean that because he literally cut it from the field 30 minutes before I got there. So I had to teach him how to fill the sink, throw the lettuce in there, get all the slugs, all the dirt, all the rocks, sink to the bottom. Okay. And then one day I always got romaine lettuce, but he was out of romaine. So I got red leaf lettuce this time. And all of a sudden my assistant cook was like, David, hey, we need to go get some more lettuce. And I was like, well, no, we don't. I just bought some like today. I got 12 heads of lettuce today. And she's like, I know, I just went through all 12 of them. I only got this little bowl of lettuce. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked, and all the red lettuce that she thought was brown and was bad, she threw in the trash.
oh no.
And she took that little tiny little strip of green lettuce. And I was just like,
Oh.
no, that's my lettuce. So I had to teach somebody what red leaf lettuce is, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes you think, hey, go do this. Hey, go prepare this. They may not realize how to do that effectively. Okay. So really, really important. We also want to take into account maybe a marker of some sort to cross off as items come in. So one of my other students in the previous class said date stickers, so we know what date those products actually came in. So all of these things are going to help us conserve our cost when we're receiving product. Okay. The other thing we want to think about, is managing our deliveries. We want to manage our vendor delivery schedules. Okay, so why do we want to manage our vendor delivery schedules? Yeah, we don't come when we're busy. We want to make sure that we are not the product's not being dropped off when we're in the middle of a lunch rush. Okay, or if we know that that's when they're going to drop off our order, we might hire and schedule someone extra that they can just focus on receiving the delivery. Okay. So we want to manage those delivery schedules and then any discrepancies. If I send those green beans back, okay, or if I find something and it's not what I ordered and I send it back, or if I open up that box and those cans are all dented, I'm going to send it back. Okay. And that is where we use our credit memo. So this credit memo form basically just outlines what product we sent back and why we sent it back and how much did it cost. This is paperwork for our accounting department so that they don't pay an invoice that doesn't see a reflection of this credit. Okay. I ordered Dijon mustard. They sent me yellow classic mustard. I'm going to send it back. I don't want it. So I want to take that off of my invoice before I pay it. Because if I were to sign for that, then that means I'm going to pay for it. Okay. So if we pay for stuff that we don't need, that's gonna increase our costs and our expenses, okay? So this credit memo is really important to document. Now, we wanna talk about the difference between our physical or our perpetual inventory, okay? Our physical or perpetual inventory. What is physical inventory?
Something that you.
Something that we can see, we can count it, we
You
can
touch,
touch
feel.
it, right?
Accountability.
It's right there in front of us. What about perpetual? What does the word perpetual mean?
It's something that you don't see.
Say that one more time.
It's something that you don't see. It's a proposal. Kind of like a.
Well, yeah,
A
we don't
non-existent.
necessarily see it. Hold on one second, Brian. Go ahead, say it one more time. Yeah, it's on a document. Okay. It's something that continually updates as we order more. So let's say we start with 50 steaks, and every time a server enters a steak in to order a steak for a guest, our inventory perpetually updates and takes a steak out of our inventory. Okay. So ideally, we want our perpetual and our physical to match. So the end of my shift, it says that I served 47 steaks. I started with 50. How much should I have as a physical inventory? Start with 50. I served 47. I should have 3 left, right? So when I go back to the line, I should go open up that drawer and say, hey, there's 3 steaks right there. My physical and my perpetual match. So let's do 3 examples. All right. So our opening inventory, we start with 10 items. We are going to add these 2 together because we purchased some. So what's 10 plus 35?
45.
45. Okay. Now we issued, meaning that we served 37 items during our dinner shift. So what is 45 minus 37?
8.
8. My actual, which is my physical, is 8. So 8 minus 8 is
0.
0. That means my physical
Did not
and
read.
my perpetual match. That's another example. What is 0 plus 55?
55.
55, okay? If we served 47, we subtract that 47 and we get what?
8.
8. Now, I go back to the kitchen. My actual, my physical is 5. So what is 5 minus 8? 3. It's not 3, it is
Nine.
negative 3.
Is this a different worksheet?
No, do you guys have those numbers on your notes page?
Not for that one. You have 47. We have 49.
No. I don't know what
Or
you
am
Oh,
I
I
looking
may
at
not-
this wrong?
I may not have updated the online version. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got 49.
Yeah, I may not have updated the online version. Yeah, that's my fault. Sorry. That's good to know. All right, so negative 3 is what we have here on the screen. Okay. We have to always do the physical minus the perpetual because that's going to tell us whether we're missing some or whether we have the same amount. Okay. So we're missing 3 of the items. Does it matter if we're missing 3 items in this case?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're unaccounted.
Depends on what those items are. If it's 3 cupcakes that cost me 55 cents, maybe I'm not going to worry too much about that. But if it is 3 steaks that cost me $45 each, okay, I'm going to figure that out. And now today we're just doing the math. In a later chapter, we're going to talk about how we actually record these things that are missing. Okay. And then as a manager, what your role is to think critically and go investigate why are we missing 3 steaks? Okay.
Hey,
Am I just going to fire the person that's on grill that night because I'm missing 3 steaks?
No.
No, hopefully not.
Hey,
Okay.
Chef,
Yes, sir.
Well, shouldn't you be a positive 8 if you're subtracting 55 from 47? The last time I checked the Chinese arithmetic system, wouldn't that be a positive 8?
It is a positive 8, yes.
Okay, so why is 5 minus 8 in a negative 3?
Because if you take 5, we actually have 5 on hand.
Oh, we should have 8 on hand. I'm sorry. Okay, got it.
Right. Yeah, we have 5 on hand. We should have 8, so that means we're missing 3.
Okay, got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
This reminds me of concession days, because last year was a concessions chair. So we would have a discrepancy report that would print out at the end of our shift when we were doing concessions, and what matched the concessions of what we sold should have matched the system that they actually used at the end of the night. And like you said, depending on what was missing, if it was by a dollar amount or how many, we had to either sit there and figure out what it was by counting again, or figuring out what it was, or we took a hit on like funds or something
Yeah.
because it was missing. So that's what this reminds me of.
Absolutely. Okay. And we can take this into any kind of scenario, right? And usually, I mean, it could be things like items that we sold, we prepared, and then we should have sold, we should have 8 on hand, but in all reality, I'm only counting 5. Okay. Could be that somebody got in a big hurry and they opened that plastic bag and they just grabbed it thinking the opening was at the top. And they grabbed it, the opening was at the bottom, and they picked that up, that steak hit the floor. They're gonna waste that steak. Okay. So this is where, like I said, today we're gonna talk about just the math only. In a later chapter, we're gonna talk about what tools do we have to look for and start investigating why we're short 3. Okay. Last one. Yes, go ahead.
This question, the perpetual inventory count, that's 8 for the previous question.
For the previous question, yes, they're both 8 for this one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, last one. Hopefully this one matches your online papers. Our opening inventory is 25. So we purchased 15, add those together and get 40. We issued 38. So 1 physical in count. We should have 2. So that means we are short 1. -1. It is important, we'll talk about it in chapter 7, especially when it comes to the beer and the alcohol that we serve. It is important to do this type of inventory. You don't have to do a full inventory every single shift, but if you have some high ticket cost items, and you just focus on those, then that way you can kind of make sure that you're keeping track of at least your high cost ingredients. Okay. So now let's talk about a little bit about the perpetual. I'll show you a quick perpetual inventory. So we start with 8. We didn't receive any. We issued 1. So then our ending is 7. Okay. Now my ending becomes my starting for the next time. So my next time I start with 7. I didn't receive any. I didn't issue any. I'm still at 7. Okay. I received 6. So what's 7 plus 6?
13.
13. I issued 2. My ending is 11. That's my perpetual. Then I want to go and figure out, do I actually have 11 hands of sliced peaches in my storage? Yes or no? Okay. And then I'll decide why do I not have, why do I or why do I not have the same matching physical and perpetual inventory. The next thing I want to talk about real quick before we move on to the last concept for the day is extending and totaling. Okay. So extending and totaling. Extending is basically just taking your item and going straight across. So I have 2 on this case. I know it's kind of hard to see, I apologize. But I have 2 homogenized milk. 5 gallons. They cost me $15.75 each. So 2 times $15.75 is $31.50. That's the extending part. And then totaling, what do we do?
Bring it down.
We just add them all up to get a total of $607.31 in inventory. Okay. So extend goes across, totaling goes down. Okay. extending and totaling. Now, the last two things on the bottom of your notes page, okay, our beginning inventory plus our weekly purchases, that equals our total available inventory. Our total available inventory. So our beginning inventory plus our purchases, that equals our total available inventory. So we think about it this way. We start with this dollar amount. We add to it, so that means during that entire period, I have access to that entire total available inventory, okay? But think back to a previous chapter. We talked about food cost. When does food become part of our food cost? When we use it. Good, when we use it. So that's what our ending inventory is. So total available inventory minus our ending inventory is our cost of goods sold. The cost of our goods sold. Because remember, if it's still in our inventory, we haven't sold it yet. So it cannot be part of our cost of goods sold. Okay? Flip your page over, please. This is our first example. Our first example right here on the board. We start with $1,500 as our beginning inventory. Okay? We add 2,500. So what is our total available inventory?
4,000.
4,000. Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. So 4,000 is our total available inventory. Now I subtract 500 and what do I get?
3,500.
3,500. So what that tells me is it cost me $3,500 to prepare all the products that I sold during that particular time period. Okay? 3,500 is my cost of goods sold. Now, we have two more formulas we're going to talk about. The first one is our average inventory. Average inventory, how do you find the average of any group of numbers?
Divide by number of items.
Add them all up and divide by the number that we have, right? So for our average inventory, we're going to take our beginning plus ending and divide by what?
2.
Divide by 2, okay? So at the top of your page, I have the formula there for average inventory. It's beginning inventory plus ending inventory divided by 2.
Beginning.
So in this case, we have 1,500. All right, that's like an 8. Let me change that. So we have 1,500 plus 500 is how much?
2,000.
Okay, so 2,000 divided by 2 is $1,000. That means on average, we had about $1,000 on hand throughout the month. Okay. So our average inventory was $1,000. And finally, last step. Inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is our cost. Let me do it color coded so it helps you see a little bit better. Is our cost of goods sold divided by the average inventory. So our inventory turnover, that's the second formula at the top of your page on the back. The average inventory, or so the inventory turnover is our cost of goods sold divided by the average inventory. Okay, so in this case, our cost of goods sold was 3,500 divide that by our average inventory of $1,000, and we get an answer of
3.5.
3.5. That means I turned my inventory over 3.5 times during the month. Okay. Turnover means I've used my product and I've purchased to replace it. Okay. How else do we use that word turnover in our industry? Related to what? Not just ingredients. Employment. We have our industry has a historically, what's what I'm looking for? A historic, reputation of having high turnover, meaning people leave and we have to replace those jobs. Okay. So that costs us money. We'll talk about that in chapter 10, 9 or 10 about employee turnover. Okay. But this inventory turnover means we've turned it over 3.5 times. Okay. Now, this is an average inventory turnover for the whole operation. If we deal a lot with canned goods or frozen items that have a longer shelf life, we may have to replace our items less, which means we have a lower turnover rate. If we operate with really fresh seafood or baked goods that have a very short shelf life, we're gonna have to turn our inventory over more frequently. Okay. Or let's say we're just an operation that has very limited on storage space. We have a very small storage space. We have to order more frequently than other organizations that maybe have more storage space. Okay. So there's not I say that because there's not an industry standard of what your inventory turnover should be. Okay. Not like the 30 to 33% food cost. There's not an industry standard. It's all dependent on your organization. Okay. So let's look at our example number 2. What is my beginning inventory for example number 2?
We don't have a beginning inventory.
We don't have it on the board, but you might have it somewhere else.
It's in the first one.
100.
500.
Say it again. $500, because this is our ending inventory from the previous example. So remember, our ending inventory becomes our new starting inventory. Ending inventory.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is 500 plus 4,500? $5,000. And when I subtract that 2,500, what do I get?
2,500.
2,500 is my cost of goods sold. All right. So our average inventory, $500 is our beginning, plus our ending of 2,500 is how much?
3,000.
3,000. We divide that by 2 and we get 1,500 is our average inventory. So $1,500 is our average inventory. And finally, our cost of goods sold, 2,500 divided by our average inventory of 1,500 is 1.7. What you guys got? Okay.
Is that for image average?
The average inventory is 1,500. You
Yeah.
got right over here. Cost of goods sold, 2,500. So that means I turned my inventory over 1.7 times. Is that more or less than the previous example? Less,
Less.
right? I had more in inventory. So let's take a look real quick and just compare these two examples. Okay, look at my weekly purchases, $4,500. My weekly purchases over here, only 2,500. I didn't purchase as much. Okay, so in this scenario, I may have purchased a lot in anticipation of something. So maybe I'm anticipating spring break. It's gonna be really busy, so I'm gonna purchase extra product. But then it rains every day of spring break and nobody comes in. Okay, I have that product. I've already bought it. Okay, hopefully this $2,500 ending balance is not so perishable that it'll go to waste, that I can use it again for the next period. Okay, but so you can see how our cost of goods sold is only $2,500. Whereas in our previous example, our cost of goods sold was $3,500. We spent $1,000 more on the ingredients that we sold, okay? Which means we didn't sell as much. This second example, okay?
Now, second question. So say you want to do a monthly. So we would just average out the turnover rate each week. So the first one would be 1.3, the second week would be the 1.7, and so forth. Would just so we can look at
Well,
monthly.
no, I don't think it's necessary to do this on a weekly basis. No, this would not, I don't think this is too much information to do on a weekly basis. Once a month probably would be the max that you would want to do,
Okay.
or the minimum you'd want to do it, okay? Maya, your question about where the $500 came from, this $500 at the beginning inventory came from the $500 as the ending inventory from the previous example.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as you are purchasing, as we are receiving our products, we want to keep track of what is in our inventory. Okay. One thing that I did not go over is our requisition form. This requisition form, I don't think it's on your notes page, but this requisition form, what is the root word of requisition? Requests. Okay. So this is the things that I'm requesting. If you go downstairs right now on the first floor, you go to the back hallway, you're going to see all these clipboards on the walls. Okay. Those clipboards represent the requisition forms that your chefs have submitted, that we know what groceries to get into your labs for the ingredients for y'all to make the food. Okay. So your chef instructors fill out a requisition form. They turn that in to either Eric or Baldo or Key or Francis, and then they will order all the product. And then we have work studies that work with Samantha and Brianna to receive all that product and put it away. And then we also take those requisition forms, fulfill the requisitions, and then put that cart in your lab so that you can have the ingredients for your lab. Okay. That requisition form is basically saying, this is what I need. Okay. One last example before I let you guys go. I was working at the Sheraton Gunther Hotel. Okay. And I needed to get some A1 sauce for my guests because they wanted A1 sauce with their steak, and there was no A1 sauce at the server station. Okay. So I had to get a requisition form from my assistant manager that says I needed to get 2 bottles of A1 sauce. I couldn't just walk over to dry storage and get 2 bottles of A1 sauce. I had to get a requisition form from my manager. Then he would call security, and security would meet me at the dry storage. I show my requisition form. Security goes in, gets it, not me. They go in, get my 2 bottles of A1 sauce. They hand them to me. They sign my requisition saying that they gave me 2 bottles of A1 sauce. And then I take that requisition form back to my manager, and he files it away that says, on this date, David asked for 2 bottles of A1 sauce. Okay. And it seems like a lot of work. But if you do that for 2 bottles of A1 sauce, how closely are they looking at the steaks and the shrimp and all that kind of stuff, right? So if they're paying that close attention to the low cost items, they're paying even more attention to the high cost items. Okay. There was one last story. I also work at the Sheraton Gunther Hotel. I started working there and I was a college student. I had 2 jobs and I was really tired one day. So the bartender was like, hey, I was picking up a glass of wine for my guest. And the bartender's like, man, you look really tired. I was like, I am. Thanks for noticing. And he's like, well, here's a Red Bull. He gave me a Red Bull, and I was like, sweet, this is awesome. I mean, a Red Bull costs like what, $5?
Yeah.
So I got the sugar-free Red Bull, and I go on my way. I have a great shift. The next day I come in, dragging again. I'm like, hey, bartender, I have a Red Bull. Sure, why not? Here's a Red Bull, right? That goes on for a week. Every day I get a Red Bull, and I'm like, sweet, this is like a perk of the job, right? I get a free Red Bull every time I come into for work. Well, fast forward like a week and a half later, we have a staff meeting. And the manager is like, hey guys, where's all our Red Bull going? And we're all just like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, we should have this amount of Red Bull. We actually have this amount of Red Bull, but I don't have tickets to show why we have a low amount of Red Bull, right? So I fessed up and I was like, hey, I have a Red Bull every day I come in, you know? And he was like, yeah, you got to cut that out, right? That is not a perk of this job that you get a free Red Bull every time you come in, okay? So at the time, I didn't realize I was stealing, but essentially I was stealing. I was drinking a product that I wasn't paying for. If I wanted, he was like, if you want a Red Bull in the future, just pay for it. Right? Well, I'm not paying a hotel price for a Red Bull. I'll go to the gas station and go that way. But if they didn't catch that, if he didn't do an inventory, right? If he's like, oh my gosh, why am I ordering Red Bull again? If he's not paying attention to that, that could go on for a long time. And maybe I'm not the only one who's drinking Red Bull. If there's 3 servers on a shift, maybe all 3 of us are drinking. And the bartender has one, that's a 4-pack of Red Bull every shift. Right? And so if you're not keeping track of your inventory and you're not keeping track of when you order and receive that product, your cost can go way high, and it can go way high very quickly. Okay. And so that's how we can control our costs in the purchasing and the receiving cycles. Okay. We will talk about storage, and we'll talk about the production, the issuing stages next time we cover chapter 7 after spring break. Okay. So what I need everyone to do right now is take your right hand, put it up in the air. Yeah, this right hand, correct. Okay. And repeat after me. I say your name.
Tiffany Skelton,
Promise.
turn
My brain off during spring break
Turn my brain on
I
during
can't make
spring
that
break.
and not think about anything from Mr. Ubinsky's class.
I
I'm
do
telling you
solemnly
now,
swear
you need to take a break. Spring break is here for a reason, okay? We're gonna hit the project really hard after spring break. So we're gonna get plenty of time to get your brain going again, okay? We're not gonna do a whole lot of math. We'll do a little bit of math, not a whole lot of math, okay? When we come back from spring break, this is for you who are online. On the 19th of March, we're going to cover chapter 7. And the first activity for chapter 7 is an expectation of when you purchase a pepperoni pizza, what is it going to look like? Okay. I'm going to be purchasing pepperoni pizzas and bringing them in for dinner that night for class. So those of you who are online, if you want to come in and get pizza on the 19th, we're going to have pizza. Okay. If not, I can't digitally give you pizza. Unless maybe it's like an emergency, not the same way. Okay. So I'm giving you a heads up. I told you this semester. I'll give you a heads up. On the 19th, we are having pizza in class. Okay. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great spring break.
What's the other date? The 26th? We need to come in on the 26th
No,
also?
26th, we are not gonna have a class.
Okay, but there was 2 dates that you want us to come in.
Yes, you have to be in class the 7th and the 14th.
Oh, okay, and you're gonna send a message out for that?
Yep, I will.
Okay, all right, Mr. Minsky.
Aaron, yes, you can put that, turn in your paper online. That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks, y'all.